It's Tandy with the Sustainable Alaska podcast and Myrtle and and Kelly. And we've got a good show coming up for you today. I'm super excited about this one. It's what's fun about these shows is one of us will just text an idea and we'll say, "Hey, let's talk about this," but we don't often talk about it ahead of time. So because this is a subject I have a definite spin.
Sorry, I gotta grab them. My dog is eating everything
Oh,
underneath.
shoot.
Oh, he's
You have a dog, I have a dog. Well, this is the Kelly and Tandy and their dog
our
show.
dog show. All right.
What I love about today's show is I have no idea how you feel about this whole idea of farming, of closing the loop on farming specific to Alaska. It's a huge hot topic in the lower 48, and I have my own ideas. I'm excited to hear what you have to say. So I think it's going to be a good show. But first, what's going on around your farm?
I'm doing fall cleaning. Moving buildings and rearranging animals and like that. Nothing is safe currently. I I'm aware, I'm aware that like we're getting into the season. For us, it's going to be lots and lots of mud. I know other places it's not. For us, there's potential that I will ruin all of my ground if I don't make some choices quickly. And so moved a shed with goats in it, down the road, just down the road. But I always say that I've been saying, like, if you don't want me to move something, don't put it on skids. But all at the same time, one of those like little farmer hacks, put your stuff on skids so then you're not stuck with it in the same spot, So if you realize, oh, this doesn't work, let's try something else. You have options. So
That's exactly right. So I like this. I want to just take a tiny little detour. This is something that is important to be thinking about right now in Alaska. And your winter is different than ours. Something that we've been talking about, Jean and I, is we've never everything is different now the way we have things configured on the farm. We've wintered over animals before, but we've never done it quite the way we're doing it. So something that we have to think about is our cow is on our barnyard, our whole barnyard, so our cow and our chickens and everybody are on quite the slope.
Mm.
And I don't want to put it's a slope that's grassy and nice, and I don't want to put gravel down. I don't want to put, I don't, I want it to still be grassy and nice next year. And Gene just asked the other day, he said, is that even possible? Because she's going to be in there during breakup. And I don't know. And these are things we need to start thinking about, and you're talking about the mud season, our mud season is different than yours. Our mud season is more at the end of winter, but a large animal can just wipe
oh,
out, well, so can chickens, but can
they
just
wreck
wipe
it.
out a beautiful spot in no time when there's mud. So something to be thinking about if you're as we're heading into winter, not only what is winter going to look like for your animals, but what about that ice season that we're facing? Is there anything that you need to do now to get prepared if you're in South Central or in the northern part of the state? What do we need to do to mitigate that ahead of time? Because it's going to come whether we like it or not. And so this is good to be thinking about. But I also am chuckling over the whole idea. Some people, like in the fall, I like to start with everything clean. I hang my bedding out one last time. And, like you said, move your furniture, clean underneath it and all that. And here's Kelly moving entire buildings. This is funny.
Yeah, I have the guy that helps a lot on the farm, and he is a long time family friend that is up here for a while. Like he's really close to my family's farm. Like he just looks at me and he's like, "Oh, Kelly." Chris, can we build this? Can we move this? Can we? And he's just like, "Yeah, probably." And I was like, "Okay, I'll leave. Here's my idea." And then I go. So
I love it. That's great. That's really fun. Well, good for you. It's
yeah.
fun. It's always fun to hear what's going on over there.
Anything else interesting on your end?
I don't remember when we talked last week. Um, we got a sheep. So
You hadn't gotten the sheep yet. You were getting the sheep.
she's really cute.
Oh, that's
And
so
she's the
fantastic.
sweetest thing. So her name is Millie. So now we have Mabel and Millie,
Yes.
and they're very best friends. And she's a little Shetland sheep. I know nothing about sheep. I will share an old farm story. When I was growing up, we lived off grid, in way far from anything, and I had a sheep. It wasn't mine. It was the guy that owned the property that we lived at. He brought the sheep, and but I loved, his name was Barney.
Mm.
And so he loved me, and he loved it when I would come home from school. He'd be so excited, and he'd hang out with me, and I'd bring him in the house and I'd hide him. And because my mom, of course, did not want a sheep in the house because they have zero control over their bathroom habits. So um, but I bring him in, and then I don't even remember how we found out, but I remember one day someone said, its name is Barney. That's an odd name for a female. And I was like, oh, okay. But it was still Barney. What are you gonna do at that point?
Right.
But I fed her every day. I would get, and this is gonna age me. I'd take an extra quarter to school so I could buy a bag of Doritos from the vending machine because Barney loved Doritos. So after school, he and I would share this little she would, and I would share this little bag of Doritos, and she'd drink Pepsi out of the bottle.
Oh my
Don't do
goodness.
this with your sheep. Don't feed these
My
things to your sheep.
goodness.
This was back in the good old days. So, but I didn't know what I was doing. I was a teenager. I did not take good care of Barney. I'm sure I was feeding him Doritos and Pepsi and, whatever. But now we have this sheep, and I didn't remember how personable they are. I mean, she would just crawl up in our lap. If we would just sit down, she'd just crawl up in our lap and hang out there. You come outside and she comes running to the fence, bleating the whole time, just so excited to see you. And she's one in a million, and she loves Mabel. And that was what Mabel needed. Mabel needed a companion. So now when we go for walks, Mabel gets her Mabel's in a halter,
Yep.
and the dogs follow along, and so does the sheep. So everywhere we
Oh,
go,
that's so sweet.
menagerie
I
of
love it.
get this menagerie of animals walking down the road. Our neighbors are just like, oh, that's just them.
That is so great. I love it.
So, but she's a lot of fun. It's fun. It's neat. It's neat adding new things and seeing the farm grow. And
Yes.
so,
That's
it's
fantastic.
so that's what's going on around here.
Good
So,
deal.
I'm so excited to talk about closing the loop because, I mean, I remember when I brought this up, I thought, okay, what's Kelly going to think? Well, she can't grow hay there, so that's a big, huge thing. So before we jump in, if you're wondering what this whole idea of closing the loop on your farm is, in the lower 48, a lot of people, Sean and Beth Doherty are major advocates for this. There's a lot of people who are doing this. And it's really, really beautiful. It's a really cool thing. So basically, what's happening is you need little to no inputs to make your farm run. So if you couldn't get to a store, if you couldn't, whatever, you couldn't bring in a shipment of anything, it doesn't matter because your farm produces enough to keep itself going. And it's an awesome, awesome, awesome goal. I'm hearing a lot more people are starting to ask me about it. What about closing the loop on property in Alaska? And I thought it would be fun to have the conversation about it, especially because your situation is a little different than ours. I'm in the valley, we have hay. So, or we can grow hay. So, yeah, so that's the intro. But yeah, I'd love to hear what you have to say, Kelly.
It's really hard. That's by and large, that's my big worst, especially Kodiak, because we are so dependent on things. However, we have, and we have been able to make them, I mean, fully closed the loop. I mean, they are 100% self-sustainable. Does it look how it would look in the lower 48? Not at all. Would a lot of, I grew up on a cattle, a stock farm there, head every year, cow operation. The thing about it, I'm very familiar with it though. You know, my dad obviously ran it and I was not an adult having to make the decisions. So you know, even when I talk to him, he's like, "What are you doing? Like, what is happening?" Our cattle free range on the grass and kelp, which is that is gold to us. And so, you know, being able to free range means they have the freedom to pick that up on their own. And so there are a couple of things on my side that are really tricky. And one is just the labor intensity of trying to close the loop. Like if I had to go down and collect kelp every day to sustain, you know, something on this side of the water, that's all I do. And I probably wouldn't make it. Anyway, so I love the idea. Um, I think about it a lot because feed prices continue to go up and hay prices continue to go up. Um, a couple ways that anyway, I think about it a lot. I love the idea of it. Am I good at it? No, except maybe the cattle. And that just took a little bit of guts to try it. Okay, okay. Sorry. I tell you what. All right,
It's okay. She'll be our mascot.
there you go.
What a cutie.
Ugh. Anyway, what are your thoughts?
Well, I have a lot of them. Well, this is something I've thought about for a long time because I mean, the bottom line is we're poor farmers. So I don't have a lot of, and I'm not, that's not, it's not, I don't even see that as a negative. We just don't have a lot of income. So my choices are have less go out or make more either make more money or spend less money. Those are my options because because I'm not the government and I don't have it. So sorry, I
Right.
shouldn't say that. So anyway, uh so I have what I have. So um a couple of things that I think are key to consider when you're living in Alaska and trying to close the loop are number one, most of us are working with a small acreage. Even in the lower 48, people are talking 80, 100 acres to close the loop on to have several cattle, some pigs, and some chickens. And the bottom line is most people that close the loop have some sort of farm business. So they're not trying to just self-sustain. They're trying to self-sustain, but they're also trying to make it so that all their bills are paid on that same land. So the majority of people that I know who are living this lifestyle up here have just a few acres at best. So that is a challenge right there. We don't, most of us don't have, and the other challenge is there isn't a lot of land to lease. That's another popular thing with closing the loop is you don't have to provide all the land, but go lease somebody's, field and grow hay on it, or put your cows out there in the summer or whatever. And then another piece is I almost said it is we have really long winters up here. And whether you're in Kodiak or Fairbanks, it doesn't matter. Winter, just because you don't have the snow or the massively low temperatures, you still have a non-growing season. So either way, whether it's just muddy and mucky and chilly, or you're sub-zero and with feet of snow, either way, you're not growing anything. So that's a bigger time where you have to input to your animals to provide for them. So those are my big like those are my negatives.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I want to just say that I was thinking of you because I thought, man, I believe so strongly in this, but maybe not for Kodiak because I still don't know how you can do it on Kodiak. Couple things too, beyond that are knowing the variety of your animal. One of the reasons people often ask if the reason that I wanted, a Highland Jersey mix of Mabel is because I love Highland cows. Well, I do. They're adorable, obviously. But I'm
Right.
entirely too practical to make a decision based on banks. Well, mostly. I mean, there's some serious bangs, but
Yes.
but uh the big reason that I wanted a Highland Jersey cross is because Highlands are foragers.
Mhm.
So they will eat more than just grass. Mabel, when I take her for a walk, she's constantly eating leaves and twigs and all the things. And I'm constantly having I have to have my phone with me because I'm always like, can cows eat whatever the thing is she's eating next. And uh so so there's that, but I did that with sustainability in mind. We'll breed her to a Highland and her calf will be 3/4 Highland. And it's because I'm not as concerned about milk production as I am making sure that, she's got things to eat and she's going to be happy in what we can grow. Because growing hay I only have about 2.5 acres for her and for all of our animals. So it's really not enough to sustain her. So, all of that to say, I've talked in circles long enough. Here's what
Sure.
I believe we can do. I believe that although it would be very, very difficult, and if you want to try it, do it. I want to hear more. But I think it would be very difficult to completely close the loop on your farm if you're wanting to grow protein. Um, I do think that people can do it within a community. I think if you work hard enough and you know the right people and you work together with a symbiotic relationship in mind, not what can I get from them, but how can we together make this work? I think communities can pretty well support. I think an agriculture community can support itself pretty well. Now, that being said, it is tricky. I'm using your word, tricky. It's super tricky. And one of the parts that I haven't figured out yet, two parts. Uh, we're working on. Uh, I have ideas for chicken food. Um, and the my big idea is sunflowers. I think that sunflowers are going to be kind of key for that. Sunflowers and peas and stuff like that. But the other thing is, my cow gets a dairy ration of grain, and the things in that grain would be tricky, would be hard to grow here. But I support my local farm store buying those things. Do they get everything local? No. So, but I am supporting a local store, giving them, supporting them so they can continue to offer this stuff to other people. Uh, so that's kind of where I sit. But I think even though I don't want to say that we can't do it, I think it would be hard, but I think we can come a whole lot closer than we are right now. And I guess that's kind of where I was hoping that you and I could bounce off of each other is what are ways we can just simply improve the sustainability of what we're doing now? Like we're considering sunflowers, we're considering beets, we're considering growing more potatoes to help feed Mabel. Um, what can I do? And I probably have more than a lot of people, but we also have a cat. We choose to have a cow, and a lot of people will choose either goats or no milk animal or dairy animal. Um, but what can I do on this 2.5 acres to make it so that it can support itself as close as possible? And by having the milk cow, then we can feed milk to the dogs and the cats and the sheep and the um, pigs and the chickens. And so all of that excess milk should be spoken for. So Mabel's holding her own, but she's hands down the one that needs the most input too. So
Right.
um so what are ways that you can, just looking at your own farm, can you think of some ways that and I don't know, we don't have boundless energy uh,
Right.
or time. So, what are some ways that you think you could maybe reduce your inputs? Is that, if that's even something that you think about?
The, the big one for me that I come down to, I'd have to decrease the animals.
Mm.
So, and that's where it's a little tricky for me. So, like right now, I'm able to produce extra milk that, that can go towards families or go towards others, animals. so if we got to a point, and I do think about this, so like what happens if the planes don't fly, or or the boats don't, so if we had a moment, well, goats have a light footprint. I could let goats out to eat.
Mm,
Like in my location that I am at, like I got goats that got out last week because I'm in between two roads. Like they have to be in pens. We are in a location, Kodiak, it's interesting. Kodiak is very remote. We are not rural at all. You are much more rural where you are than I
mm.
am. And so as far as, yep, I can let animals out, probably can't have as many as I have right now. Goats are, obviously all over the world. Goat milk's the most drank milk in the world. There's a reason for that. Goats are survivors. They are livers, like they want to make it. Um, Same thing goes with, I probably couldn't have all the cows that I have. I could keep, as far as dairy, potentially could keep one if I could just let her out. And then further, she's not going to produce as much milk at that point. So I've thought about those types of things. If I needed to let them just forage, because no, I can't grow hay here. I mean, I can't make it into hay. I can't, there are ways like there are no fields of production on this island. There's not a barley field. There's not a, and like our barley, I can plant barley and it never gets dry. It always is milky, so I have grown beets. Now we could get a little pellet maker. They have those little pellet makers, so I could potentially beets. The nutritional quality of what we get in Kodiak is not, incredibly high as far as the feed. Now, to go back though a little bit, so I have a dairy goat, that helps produce milk, or a cow that produces milk. I always have pigs because if I have extra, whether it be whey, the whey or milk, the pigs are going to get that and they're growing. Pigs really can about survive on that milk. Further, because I'm mixed species farm. I have a cow and a goat, so I can process all the cow milk or I can process all the goat milk, and then I have enough to support the baby animals of the other, so cow or goat. And then I make sure to collect all my manure, highly labor intensive, but I do because we don't have soil. That's a big problem here. So, this last year it was 100% manure. And I put that in my garden to see if I could grow. And I got a lot of, nope, you are not. And people are like, why don't you use kelp here? Or why don't you use the beet pea? And I was like, nope, I'm a Nebraskan. That's odd to me. I'm going to do it the way that I feel like I can do it. And they're like, that's too hot. That soil is never going to grow. By golly, it grew. And it was the best garden that I have ever had. And it was 100% from our animals, from the bedding, and it was that was it. And so there in turn, I grew cabbage. I grew, all these items. Now, could you make that on a larger scale? Potentially, but for me, that's one loop that I can kind of close right there. I didn't have soil, so is it fully everything? No, but I feel like that can be kind of a win, as far as closing one loop on my.
And I think that's the biggest piece of it, um, is keeping in mind that it's the little victories that are going to get you where you want to be. So, so often we have, well, I still have people call well into winter and they're like, we want like a 5-year-old apple tree. And, and so I have to explain, you don't want a 5-year-old apple tree. First of all, don't spend, that's a lot of money to spend, but that's their business, not mine. But the biggest problem with a 5-year-old apple tree is they want it quick so that it'll produce fast, but it doesn't have the root system. When you buy a small apple tree, it spends the first couple of years before it's in production. It's building those roots. And that's so important, especially up here where the winters are harder and the summers are shorter, and sometimes even the summers aren't very summery. And uh, so it's the small wins. Just simply, take your $500 you're going to spend on one tree and let's buy, 4 apple trees and a whole bunch, let's fill an entire orchard with plants. And in 5 years, you are going to be so set for berries. And Yeah, so I love that idea of, so how do I close one loop and how do I make that, just that one win, be kind of launch us to the next one, right?
And the long game in mind. You know, like you said, like you just made the comment that plan ahead,
Mhm.
plan with, longevity in mind, that maybe this isn't today or tomorrow. Like your orchard, when you had the vision to have that, I had to, I mean, you're like, good golly. I mean, you were in the middle of a forest and look what you have established. But had you been like, oh, it didn't come in 1 year, must be over. Well, that's not so much. Like it just takes time.
It absolutely takes time. And that's part of, I think that's part of homesteading, is it is kind of a slow game, but it's a forever game. And it's not just it's a lifestyle. It's not something that we're just doing because it's cool, or because it's certainly not because it's easy or cheap. So
No, exactly. Well, and something that I constantly fight myself over. I grew up, in a farming community. We were production agriculture. So you obviously are trying to produce enough because that's what you live on through the year, so you need enough. So even for me here, there came a point when I just was like, oh, I need to keep growing. I need to keep getting bigger. And that's not necessarily correct. So it's, small can be mighty. Don't grow beyond your means, grow small and do your best to keep it that way. And does that mean you sometimes have to make hard decisions? Yeah. Like I'd love to keep every single one of my goats. Well, that's not helpful to any of the goats. Like you have to make smart choices and then look at, okay, the electricity goes out, if this or that, like what can I sustain, by myself here. And so I think that that's another, that's part of that homesteader lifestyle also. You know, not big, be small. And what you also said, depend on your community. I can't do all of the things. I'm a horrible gardener, really, at the end of the day, and you had made that comment. You're like, I don't know that I want to garden next year. I have people I can get my broccoli from. Fantastic. Where can we close the loop in our community, but being, community minded?
that's right. And you're still, every time I tell you, when I want to try to put this into words. When I click buy now on Amazon, I'm not picking on Amazon, and I don't hate Amazon. I mean, I use Amazon. So
Right.
when I click buy now, it's just a purchase. I don't know. It's just whatever I need, it's done. I move on. I don't really think about it. But when I drive an hour and go to Bush's Bunches and look
Yeah.
around and see all the really cool things they have, and I look at Rosie's pasta, I think it's called, and I had to read, I was like, where's she even at? And she's on the Kenai, Sterling, I think, or something. I can't remember. And I'm thinking, who the heck is Rosie and what made her want to make pasta? And then, you see the far north fungi mushrooms, and you're like, why did they even grow this mushroom? And what's the nutritional value of this mushroom? And what am I going to do? What's a really cool way that I can cook this for my family? And um and then I see, Wanderflower Body Co. and I see her little tallow lotions and her eye makeup, or her eye under eye cream, and you just look at all these and you think, when I leave Bush's Bunches, I've supported a local store. I feel so good about my purchase. I'm excited to bring it home. I'm excited to do whatever I'm going to do with it, whether I'm cooking or putting it on my face or whatever it is. And I want to talk about it. I want to show people what I got. And knowing that the money that we make comes from our community. So somebody came to our farm and bought berries, and then I in turn went to Bush's Bunches and bought mushrooms, and now I'm coming back to feed my family. I just think that's really cool. So I think that, to kind of summarize where my head was going with this, I think it would be very, very hard to have a zero input farm up here. I think it would, and I think if a person, especially in Alaska, were to make that their only goal, then I think they'd really miss out on something that's so much bigger and cooler, because then we're missing out on that community aspect of getting, going to seeing on Marketplace just a gardener that grew way too much broccoli. So you go get broccoli, and a friend, it's actually my daughter-in-law's dad, had posted on Marketplace. Well, she posted with Our Lady Homesteaders and said, Dad has a bunch of extra broccoli. So somebody went and picked some up, and then he had more. So then he's calling him and he's like, I've got a little extra. Do you want maybe a little more? And how cool is that? How great is it when we can have that community and we're meeting new people and we're getting to know new methods? Who's growing broccoli with heads this size? And if when they are, how the heck are they doing it? Like, yeah. So I think, in to kind of wrap it all up on my side, closing the loop is a really cool idea. And I do think that that there are ways that we can have fewer inputs and definitely make things more affordable. But at the same time, I would hate to get so caught up in the idea of closing the loop and being so self-reliant that I forget my neighbors and I forget my friends and I miss out on those massive broccolis and those really good mushrooms from Bush's Bunches.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think my last little thought with all of it is too that, like, I love the whole community loop idea. Like, don't close so much. It's a community closed loop that you have. Um, like, even this last week, we had some folks that had come through that I work, back and forth with a lot with the farm, and they made a comment like, "Oh, we're already out of pork," and I was like, "Oh, I have pork. Like, look, like, what do you need? Like, let's grab a little bit for you, like." And it wasn't like, "Oh, go to the store." I'm like, "Oh, if I can just keep you at the farm, that's great." But well, and I was not selling them pork. So don't nobody come after me. I wasn't doing herds and holes and all that stuff. So everybody leave me alone. I gave it to them. There was no sale that happened. Um, but there's also that because they help provide services, like it's friends back and forth together. I'll get, and maybe we gotta cut that out. I don't know. Anyway, anyway, um, but we too at times have this idea that we need way more than we actually do. And that's a part for me, and I'm doing my best to help teach my boys this also. We have this idea like, oh, you think you need this soda, or you need, no, you don't. We think we need, no, no, we don't. Like, what do we need? What do we want? And I think at times I've gotten, like my mom used to do this a lot growing up. Are you satisfied? You don't have to get yourself overly full. Are you satisfied? Do you feel good right now? And that's, we just have this like, and I love a good buffet. I'm a Nebraskan, but do we really need all that? What do we need? And yeah, I want to enjoy when something does come into season, and then, oh, we're like right now, we've eaten all the steak. Well, it's butcher in November. We're coming up to butcher's. I sure do love that steak, and am so thankful that Graham gets me those steaks that I'm going to appreciate, this next year, and go without to then have it again. So
Yes, that's a whole nother, I feel like that's a whole nother topic almost,
I agree.
because we could talk about it for such a long time. But yes, especially when you do up an animal, I am guilty of, because I'm the one pulling stuff out of the freezer. I am totally guilty of picking out my favorite things. And then at the end, you're like, oh, what do I do with four of the super dry roasts? I don't want the dry roasts. I want the good marbled roasts. And what are we going to do with these? And so, yeah, but I love that concept, Kelly. You're so right. What do we even actually need? And I had to chuckle when you asked that question, are you satisfied? Because it gave me for what I first got was like, I was just thinking about, yeah, Americans, we tend to be, um we're like consumers. But so is my cow. And if I were to
Oh,
ever ask my cow, when I'm giving her her oatmeal treats, are you satisfied? I could give her her weight in oatmeal treats and she'd still say, "No, I'm not satisfied. Give me more."
So true. That's
So,
so true.
so we won't ask the livestock if they're satisfied.
No, and that's another good point, just in thinking about closing that loop to what, animals, and that's where it's tricky. Like Kodiak is not an ag-based place. So when I'm over here feeding my breeding sow such a small amount of feed, because I know if I don't, we're gonna have problems come birthing time. Just to an outsider, they're looking at like, you're gonna starve that animal. No, I'm not. I'm being responsible and doing what's right, and but those are hard things at times to understand. And there is an idea of like, I can overfeed my livestock and they're not going to digest that. They're just going to push it right back out. I guess it's going to make me more soil, but golly, it's going to make my back sore too. So
And
anyway,
your wallet really thin.
then that's true. And I already have that problem. I have to, I'm like, nope, stick to the plan,
Yeah.
Kelly. So
It's true. Well, this has been fun.
yeah.
I would love to hear from anyone who is closing the loop. And I really like your idea. I hadn't really ever thought of that. I've always thought of closing the loop as a big picture, but there are areas that we can close it. There are small things
Absolutely.
that we can do to decrease the input that we need on our farm. So I'd love to hear from anybody who maybe is, working on just reducing the inputs. That would
Yeah.
be that would be fun to hear ideas. So thank you, Kelly. I appreciate it.